Hi, I'm Charles. I own and direct Kaleidoscope Rock Academy here in the Seattle area. It's currently about 104 outside, so it's one of the hottest days on record here in Seattle. But I'm inside in the air conditioning to talk to you about my new HeadRush pedal. My goal in this video was to create the first part of what I would call a missing manual. So this is the first batch of information that I felt like was hard to figure out or to find elsewhere online when I first got the HeadRush pedal and was trying to set it up for its first live performance with my band. So this particular group of information or batch of information is largely about the architecture of the pedal. What I would say is like how sounds, what they call rigs, set lists, patches, presets, those type of things are organized, because I feel like the terminology, number one, the terminology that HeadRush uses is a little different than Line 6, which is what a lot of my prior band room gear here is from. I also feel like there was a misleading bit of information about this architecture in the manual, the quick start manual, so I'll bring it up later. And I also feel like there's a lot of videos out there, but nothing that I could find quickly that addressed what baffled me the most about the HeadRush. So what I'm going to try to do in this video is provide that section of like a missing manual, what I really wish I'd had a couple weeks ago when I first started setting the pedal up. And at this point, we're going to move on over to the pedalboard view for the rest of the video, and I will show you what I mean. So helping with this portion of the video is our good friend Pablo. He is one of the band room mascots here at Kaleidoscope. The first thing that I figured out from looking at the HeadRush is that the primary language for what I would call a preset on or a patch on a lot of other gear is called a rig. So right now, let's make sure I'm on all rigs. So in this mode, if I've got the number and the name of the rig at the top in green highlighted there, I can change rigs just by moving this main dial on the left. It kind of lurches around if you go super fast, but we want to get back to the beginning here. There's, I think, 270 rigs that it comes with, and they're sequential, but one thing that immediately confused me, like comparing this to a Line 6, was if I edited one of these rigs, I wanted to be able to save it to a particular number. What I found is that if you select a rig on here, it actually, and then you modify it and save it as a new rig, it's not going to put it in a particular number. It's not going to give you a choice like for a saved destination like a Line 6 item does, like a Line 6 Spider. So let's say I'm looking at this one here, and I turn the parametric EQ on, and I hit save. It's going to say save new rig or save. If I choose save, I'm saving over top of the Luke's Blues patch that it came with. But if I save new rig, let's do this here, and I give it a name like test. Notice there's no number next to test. That's because it's automatically put test at like the end of my whole series of rigs. So if I highlight this again for changing, these are rigs I've made. Notice none of them have numbers. If I go back through the ones I've made so far, I eventually entered the standard rigs that the HeadRush came with. So that was the first thing that kind of threw me off, is not being able to save new creations to a specific numerical slot. Because I was like, how am I going to get to those? Well, this gets into another level of the hierarchy here, which is there is a setlist level hierarchy in the HeadRush, which I really haven't used anything quite like this before. So if you touch the three lines here on the left, you get various set lists. So the set list that we're in right now is all rigs. In other words, I'm seeing all the rigs that it came with, 1 through 270, and then I'm seeing the ones past that I've made. So these other set lists are default ones that the unit came with. So let's say I want to hear only, or I want to see only a set list of clean tones. So you notice now it's jumping numbers. When I change rigs, it's not going straight from 147 to 148. What it's doing is it's skipping all the intervening ones that are not part of that set list, because the preordained set list that this thing came with for clean only has the rigs that it considers clean tone type rigs. So basically each set list is a subset of the larger number of rigs. That's an important thing to understand. So what I did for my band for this gig that we did is I created a brand new set list. You're able to make one that has whatever name you want. That would be under new here. And I called it Cygnus, which is the name of my band. And then once you get in there, you can see various rigs that I've constructed. Notice they don't have numbers next to them because they're ones that I made. But I manually added each one of these rigs to the set list, so they're going to come in the order in which I made them. That's one thing that's kind of annoying. They default to the order in which you made them. But this set list is excluding all of the numerical factory rigs that the unit came with, and it's only showing me the ones that I want for my band. If I wanted to add one of the factory rigs to this set list, I easily could do that. Now what I need to do is go back to the set list button, so that's up here, the 3 lines, and then if I touch the 3 dots, I get an edit option over here, and that's where I can take from the list on the left, which is all the rigs, right, and I can drag these over into my set list. This is kind of annoying here too, is what it's saying is that when you drag a rig from the left, which is all the possibilities are on the left, when you drag a rig into your particular set list, now it's a song. So if I wanted to put like Food Fight in here, I just drag it in there, and actually this is where I can reorder them. I don't get to reorder them when I create them and save them in the non-set list kind of way of looking at things, like when I'm on alt rigs, but I can reorder them now as songs in my set list. But I think it's kind of confusing because the set list is really like a rig subset as well as a list of songs. So that's kind of a funny thing that threw me off. But now in my band, I've got these in order. And I don't want Passing Lane in there. I just did that as a demo for you guys. So this is my entire architecture right now for my band's set of rigs. So I think of them more as rigs that I've selected for my band's general set list, not as songs that we're playing, because you can see like Red Barchetta by Rush has 4 different rigs. So they're not really songs, they're parts of a song. And then these general ones up here are ones that I use for multiple songs, my basic clean, my basic blues, my basic rock, whatever. So I don't like the terminology song there, but that's what the unit is doing when you drag a rig into a set list. It's calling it a song. So one other important part of the hierarchy, which it was confusing, I'll tell you why, I'm going to say discard changes because I don't want to mess with my stuff. If I go back to all rigs and now I'm looking at like everything the unit has, I'm going to have to go highlight this again to green so I can move it. Now I'm going to get back into these ones that it came with here. And some of these later ones are kind of confusing because they're based on bass and other things that are kind of not guitar-ish. But let's say I go find one here that's like kind of more of a typical guitar one. Each one of the elements of this rig primarily is what they call a stomp. So like each one of these is like a little stomp box. And when you double tap on one of those and you edit, this is where the word preset comes in. See, when I first got this, I thought the word preset would refer to the rigs, like patches, but really presets are settings on a particular stomp or effect. And I thought it was kind of weird until I realized that's the terminology that most DAWs, like digital audio workstations like Sonar, use when you have plug-in effects, like you add a flanger. Well, that flanger has presets in the drop-down menu in the effects box or window of your recording software. So the way the HeadRush uses the word preset is for that. It's a specific set of parameters only for this one stomp box that you could create within a rig, but it's going to stay saved as a preset for that stomp independent of this particular rig or patch. So if I hit the drop down on the presets, I got all these different options I can pick from, and I can make new ones. So if I start with one of these, like a narrow stereo doubler, and I mess with it, I can then save this as a new preset and access it from that drop down menu in other rigs or patches. But this is I'll put it on the screen here, the piece of information I thought was really misleading. In the manual on page 9 of the quick start guide that I have, it says, while using a HeadRush Pedalboard, a rig is a preset, the combination of assigned models, ... Well, I think what they're saying there is that a rig is a preset in the sense that other units use the word preset. However, a rig is not a preset in the way that the HeadRush architecture uses the word preset. And that really got me off track and sent me to YouTube looking for information, which is probably the primary thing that got me thinking I need to make my own video to help you guys out. Was an unfortunate sentence here in the Quick Start manual. That helped me a lot to figure out. So then let's talk about another thing that confused me, which is the different modes the pedal board of the HeadRush can be set in. If you hold down the lower left button, it gives you options to use stomp mode, rig mode, hybrid mode, and setlist mode. So what the setlist mode means as a pedal board option is a little bit different than what the setlist means when you're using the screen, and that's one thing that threw me off. I knew right away that I was going to want to use hybrid mode. Hybrid mode, I'll click on it here, is when this line of buttons refers to rigs, and the bottom line of buttons refers to different stomps within that rig. So let me get off of this so if I'm looking at all of these, I know that I can pick a whole different, whoops, gotta start changes. I can pick a whole different patch or rig here, but once I'm within that, I can use these to turn on and off various stomp effects within that rig, and I can assign this bottom row of buttons however I like. You know, if you're like, I don't need to turn the reverb on and off, but I want to be able to turn something different on and off, you can create the sound up here, save it as rigged, and then you can specify the hardware aspect of which buttons are going to turn off which things. And in hybrid mode, you've only got 4 choices here. So if you need to turn on or off more than 4 things, you're kind of screwed, but that's okay. I don't need to generally. But what got me confused is like, well, I want to use the setlist mode to create my subset of rigs for my band, but I also want to use hybrid mode to add and subtract from those rigs the way that I just described. You can. So what you do is you go up here to pick the set list that's going to limit what you're seeing. You know, using the screen, I got to my band's set list, which filtered out all the rigs that I don't need to consider and only put in the ones that I added manually as, quote, songs to my set list. And then I can still go down here and put the pedal board on hybrid mode. But now it's hybrid mode scrolling through only the rigs that are part of my set list. So that was, to me, was the perfect solution for my first gig with this pedal, but it was not immediately apparent. I thought, oh, if I want to use set lists, I'm going to have to put this in set list mode, and then I'm not going to be happy, right? But this is actually not that, to me, it's not that useful of a mode, because all it's doing is picking, you know, like global set lists, and a lot of the set lists, like the ones that come up there, have a lot of rigs in them, so how is that going to really help me? You know, so it gives you that option, but to me, most people would not want to use that as how they would set their pedal board up for a show. A lot of people would probably use rig, so that in this mode you get 8 choices of rigs per bank in whatever set list you've chosen, right? I'm noticing that all of these are coming up as crunchy tones, so I wonder if so that's because I have the crunchy tones selected here. So it's only letting me pick 8 crunchy tone rigs at a time before I move up and down banks. But if I went back to Cygnus, see, it would dynamically interact with the set list choice up here, so that now I'm seeing 8 different rigs from my set list arranged in rig choice mode. But if I go to hybrid, it goes back to where I've only got 4 of those at a time, and I've got add and subtract buttons for the stomps down below. And then if I want to get to my next line of patches or rigs, I've got to use bank up and down. One thing that's kind of interesting is the different modes for the pedal board redefine what bank up and down mean. For example, if you are in rig mode, you're getting each functional bank is 8 choices, right? But if you go to hybrid mode, because you're taking away this bottom row of pedals for rig selection, the banks are now only 4. So that's different than like a line 6 unit would be as well. The other mode here would be like stomp. And I think what you have to do with this mode is you have to pick one rig, leave it on there by picking it with the screen, and then within that rig you have 8 add and subtract stomp options in this mode. But that's kind of crazy because you can't really change rigs at all with your feet. So that would only be if you're really a type of person where all you need is have basically one rig for a whole set, and then you would just be adding and subtracting like different sounds from that rig. I can imagine someone might want to do that, someone who's used to working just with stomp boxes on and off, and they don't really think of themselves as using like whole different global setups. But again, that brings us back to like, I understand the stomp, I understand the rig, I understand the hybrid. The set list is still a little bit weird, like why you would want to do that with your feet. To me, it's like, I'd want to do that with the screen, select a certain group of rigs, and then set up how I'm going to access sounds within that group using one of the other modes, not the setlist pedalboard mode. So that's kind of my personal predilection. I think that now that I understand the way that set lists are a subset of rigs and the way that the selection of a set list will interact dynamically with the pedalboard mode that I'm in, like hybrid, I actually like how this is set up better than the Line 6. However, until I understood that, I was like, man, this is not going to do what I want. So I'm hoping that I saved you some pain and suffering with this particular mini manual for the HeadRush. I guess I'm the type of person I really like to understand the global architecture of things before I really get into using them. And this one I had about 2 days to figure it out before a show, because I was just having trouble with my like analog tube-based rig and just couldn't deal with it anymore. So that's a whole other story. But using these insights, I was able to get there, and I used it, and I was happy with how it performed. And I do think it sounds great. I have another video, probably should have mentioned at the beginning, where I just went through all the patches, or a lot of the patches, demoing this when I first opened it up. So that's kind of like my initial sound demo. You can check that one out. There's a link to it in the description of this video. I will definitely make a part 2 if I get to another point of confusion where I'm like, hey, there's no good information about this aspect of the HeadRush out there. I think it should be out there. I will make a part 2 to this missing manual. But for now, this to me was the most critical set of missing informations that I really wish had been there for me. So I hope that putting this out there enables them that bit of information to be there for you. So until I do another video on the HeadRush, I hope you enjoyed this one and the prior one unboxing it and demoing patches. And if you like this kind of thing, I'm adding more and more gear and lesson type videos to this channel. So please subscribe and check them out. Thank you so much for watching.